And we're live. Hey everyone, my name is Josh Perry. I am an IIN graduate. I'm also a multiple brain tumor survivor, former professional BMX athlete, and today I speak, I coach, I mentor, I train people, I educate with passion, and all the things I do is really inspired by the journey I've lived, and the mission I have is to positively change people's perspectives that allows them to empower themselves to live their best lives possible. And I do that through sharing my experience, sharing what works for me, what I've learned, and what I do to help other people. And along the way, I think it was the second brain tumor diagnosis that led me to get really diving into nutrition and holistic health and really understanding what I can do to preserve my health, to prevent the brain tumors from reoccurring, and to improve my performance on and off my bike. And I got really passionate about the things I was learning and the things I was experiencing, and I wanted to share them, and I wanted to voice my truth to the world. And the more I did, the more I was kind of challenged along the way of, why these things work, or why not this, or can you prove that, and things like that. And it led me to really wanting to understand more of the mechanisms and the biology behind nutrition and human health. And I was introduced to Dr. David Perlmutter in 2013 in his book, Grain Brain. So if you guys haven't heard of him or that book, I'd highly recommend it. But that was one of the first things I read about nutrition, but also one of the first things that I learned that really changed my perspective and to allow me to feel empowered and like I had something I could do for my health, more importantly my brain, which controls everything. I'll be talking about my perspective on that. And it was shortly after that I was, looking for something that could give me more structure to, how to go about learning. Because at the time, I was reading books, I was reading blogs, I was following different influencers and thought leaders and doctors. I was on Google here, and then it would bring me over here, and I'd learn that, X, Y, and Z are good, and then I learned X, Y, and Z are bad. And everyone had their own beliefs and their own truths. And something I've learned along the way is that there can be multiple truths at once. But really it comes down to the individual. And one of the things I learned in IIN is bio-individuality, and how health is more than just nutrition or exercise. It's more than just a physical appearance or things like that, but it's the mind and body connection. And that's along the way I've learned a lot more about the mind-body connection. And for those asking, the book's Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. And it really talked about the direct correlation and to some degree causation of chronic elevated blood sugar levels and the detrimental effects to your brain over the long term, and what you can do to regulate blood sugar and what you can do to increase your brain health and performance. And so along the way of trying to discover where I could go, I'm a high school dropout, got my GED 3 years after that. I dropped out of, long story short, I dropped out of high school at 17 years old to pursue my dream of becoming a professional athlete in the sport of BMX. And I made that dream come true. I rode in X Games and I traveled around the world, paying sponsors, and I was literally living my dream. And then one day when I was 21, a brain tumor diagnosis hit, and that's what changed my life. And so at this point, it was 3 years after the brain tumor diagnosis, the original one, and then a second one, and I was treated. And I really got passionate about nutrition and read Grain Brain, and I was just really looking for a way, as someone without a degree or having to go through the reins in college, what I could do to educate myself with the intention of wanting to help myself but share with others. And that's when I came across the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And I reached out to a couple graduates that I found on Instagram, and I asked them their experience, and they gave me nothing but positive feedback. And so I eventually enrolled in the beginning of 2014. And I was looking, again, I was in a fearful state of the brain tumors returning after the first 2 times, but then also an insecure place of not knowing how to explain my truth. I believed in these things, I was witnessing these things, I was sharing with other people and they were witnessing the benefits, but I didn't know how to explain. And so IIN to me was a way that I could learn the steps, and I could be guided in a manner that wasn't going to take me all over the internet and the black hole that is Google. And one of the first things that the founder, Josh, he shared was, welcome, all those things. And it was like, we're not here to teach you what to think. We're here to teach you how to think. And I remember getting super frustrated. That was like day one, and I was just like, what? And then I, came to learn what that really meant, and I was thankful for it because they threw everything they could at me. Everything that conflicted with one another. Whole grains. High fat. High carb, low carb. Vegan. Carnivore. Like all these things, and it really taught me how to learn for myself, how to dive in, how to gain perspective, how to figure out what I wanted. And I had a really good foundation built from Dr. Perlmutter in his book Brain Brain of, looking at these things from a scientific perspective and how the data shows. And, for me, it just felt like the best way to go. And so thankfully through IIN, I was introduced to Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Daniel Amen, who I've connected with in person, Dr. Perlmutter I've connected with as well, but then also Mark Sisson. And they were, really great speakers and on the topic of blood sugar and brain health and performance. And so it resonated a lot with me, and I really took a lot away of how to coach other people, how to coach myself, but how to turn my passion into a business that left me feeling fulfilled and, wanting to do more, wanting to learn more and all these things. And so I was really fortunate to have found IIN and really thankful that I enrolled and I took a chance on something that I was a little bit fearful of and made the investment, and really enjoyed it. So I have a couple things I want to share today beyond the story. And so my biggest passion today is my brain health and performance. And so a lot of people hear the word performance and they think physical activity. For me as an athlete, they think about sports or training. And performance is more than that. Performance is how you show up. You could be a parent, you could be a business owner, you could be an educator, a creative, an artist. It's really how you show up, and we have the potential to show up as our best selves. And with a lot of lifestyle choices that we may not be aware of, or we may be aware of and we choose to ignore it, could be limiting our performance. And so I learned quickly on that the brain health, the brain is the operating system of our being, the mind aspect of it, but the physical aspect of it. And it really triggers so many different functions to our physical well-being and how we show up. So I started learning how to prioritize my brain health, and that led me down a route of specific thought leaders and educators. And it really helped me along the way. And so one of the number one things that I've learned about optimizing our brain health and performance is regulating stress. And that has to do with health in general. The amount of stress that we can regulate is going to determine how well we show up, how we feel, how we think, and how we look. And so stress is more than just perceived mental stress, but it's physical stress. So the foods we choose to consume, the exercise we choose to partake in, but also our mind, our mindfulness, meditation, journaling, reading, music, all these different things to get away from stress. But again, stress is very important. It's a very important survival technique or aspect of our being. But in today's society, we have so much man-made stress that we live off of. And so when we can regulate stress with our choices in food, exercise, and mindfulness, we have a better chance of improving our health overall. And so I've become a really big fan of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle, but more so towards learning how to regulate blood sugar and metabolic flexibility. And so I used keto for a while as a tool, and it allowed me to fight off the third brain tumor diagnosis without any kind of medical treatment, surgery, or medication. And so that was my truth. That was my experience. And I've helped other people do the same. But I've learned that it's not just about, regulating ourselves to one set of parameters in a diet. It really comes down to, in my opinion, regulating blood sugar. And if you can keep from having chronic elevated levels of blood sugar, you're going to reduce inflammation, you're going to reduce reactive oxygen species, and you're going to ultimately reduce the amount of stress in your body. And so now I've really become passionate about learning more about metabolic flexibility, meaning can you burn fat and create ketones? Can you burn carbohydrates and utilize glucose? Or are you insulin resistant? Things like that, because that's going to determine so many elements of your life and your well-being. And so some of the tips I wanted to share, practical tips, the very general, but one of the first things I learned through IIN was to become conscious of my choices. We can choose what foods we consume or what we don't, but we don't know what we don't know. So the more we can educate ourselves, the more we become aware or conscious of our choices. And so the first thing is become conscious. And the next is eat real whole food. If you're just starting out and you're wanting to learn, more about these things, of course, educate yourself, but become educated with your being. Audit your choices on a day-to-day basis and learn if those choices are helping you or hurting you. There's no right or wrong. There is what there is. And unless you have a goal and you have something you're trying to work towards, and you're auditing those choices, if you don't have those pieces of the puzzle, you're not going to know what's healthy or unhealthy, or what's going to help you or hurt you. So step 1, become conscious. Step 2, eat real whole food. And then thereafter, it becomes reducing your sugar intake. Once you're understanding what you're consuming and the amount of sugar that may be in this food, and you're educating yourself of, blood sugar chronically elevated and what's going on as a consequence of that, start beginning to reduce your sugar intake. Eating organic fruit all the time is probably not a good idea, especially if you're living in America in the winter. It just doesn't make sense. And there's so many things that I would love to share. And again, Grain Brain is a perfect place to start learning about blood sugar control. But Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Daniel Amen, he's not a doctor, but Mark Sisson, they're all big advocates of regulating blood sugar. And next step is drink more water. We as human beings in today's society drink far too much, juice, sodas, energy drinks, coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee, but you have to hydrate yourself with water and sodium. But we drink too many things that are made from water, kind of, but they're not really water. And our bodies thrive on water, and we're chronically dehydrated as a population. So that's the next step. But again, I mentioned earlier, the next step is going to become fat adapted, metabolically flexible. So teach your body for some time how to burn fat from the diet and the body. Things like intermittent fasting come into play here. Regulating your carbohydrate intake, maybe lowering it for some time, because that teaches the mitochondria, which is, the makeup of your energy in your body, or the machinery to produce energy in your body. We're really going to train them to burn fat and ketones. So once you can do that for some time, then you have the flexibility to eat carbohydrates or fats and things like that from time to time. But another piece I want to add to this is biomarkers. So are you testing your blood glucose? Do you know what your fasting insulin is? Things like that. That can be really powerful in determining, who may want to reduce their carbohydrate intake and for how long, and then test along the way to see what their metabolic flexibility is. And that's something I've become really, really passionate about lately, is learning the biometrics and the biomarkers of my body. And we can all test our blood sugar at home. We can go get an A1C test, which shows, your blood test, your glucose shows a snapshot in the moment of your blood sugar. An A1C shows about a 2 to 3 month span of the average, and it's looking at, I'm not gonna go too far into it, but it's looking at blood sugar damage in the form of glycation. And so you can really get a feel for where you are and where your metabolic health is. And that's my belief, the number one factor in your overall health. So, and then beyond that, it's just continuing educating yourself and strengthen the muscle that is your brain. We can never learn too much. We can never stop learning, no matter how old we get. And the more we get our brain thinking, the more our past wiring of neurons and these pathways start to break apart and create new ones. And that's where a lot of my focus is going as well today, is the conscious thinking and the unconscious thinking. And until you start auditing your choices and thoughts, not just food, but the way you think, the way you move, the way you react, your emotions, your feelings. So you start auditing those things, you don't really know how to change. And you can predict your tomorrow based on where you are now. So those are just some of the things that I'm really passionate about. And as you can tell, I love this stuff. I can talk all day about these things. So if any of you want to reach out and have a conversation, my Instagram is just Josh Perry BMX. And yeah, just reach out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have questions. And I'm gonna go through and just try to answer some questions, some comments I saw pop up. But I want to thank IAN for this opportunity to share my experience and my truth and what I'm passionate about. And if anyone's considering, enrolling in IAN, I would highly recommend it, because it gave me such an amazing foundation to think for myself, but learn, some of the ins and the outs of marketing and how to structure my business as a health coach. And what I've been able to do from there and been inspired to do has been something I never would have fathomed doing by simply enrolling. When I enrolled, it was simply to teach myself more, to find a structured path to follow, but then also to help other people. And I was still competing and traveling for a good 3 or 4 more years after that before I did anything with what I learned in IAM. I just applied it to myself and kind of shared along the way. And from building a platform in my sport to where I am today, I've been able to reach more people. And so I find a lot of people are fearful of sharing the truth. And I just wish people would share more of the truth, because again, you can have more than one truth in the world. It's just a matter of understanding what your truth is and the belief behind it, and just respecting other people's truth. So I'm gonna go through some comments and some questions and see. So what's your position with Keto Diet? So Keto diet, the ketogenic diet and lifestyle, I believe it's very important for some people. It's a great tool for others, and it could be considered like a lifestyle for people. But what I said earlier, if you go back when we post this and you listen, I was talking about metabolic flexibility. Keto, which is short for ketosis, metabolic state of producing ketones in your blood. It's not a food, it's not who you are, it's not a way of living or eating, it's a metabolic state. When you can train your body, specifically your mitochondria, to be able to burn fat at such a rate they create ketones in your bloodstream, you increase your insulin sensitivity, and which allows you to be flexible, meaning you can go from glucose, from carbohydrates, or ketones and fat from the diet or the body. And so I believe it's a powerful tool. Now, I have a friend that is, he has drug-resistant epileptic seizures, and he avoided a third brain surgery to give a shot at a ketogenic diet. And because he did that, he was able to reduce his 7 seizures a day to virtually none in 6 months. Like, he actually just went 6 months without a single seizure after like 5 to 7 a day. No medication, no treatments, nothing, just strictly lifestyle choices. And that's really powerful. Someone like myself, I've been able to reduce my glucose levels and my insulin levels to a degree where the rapid cell growth of the brain tumors has halted, and it's been 3 years now. My Instagram account is Josh Perry BMX. We're gonna upload this to the IGTV, and I'll post my account there. But again, feel free to reach out, send me DMs. I do my best to respond as quickly as I can. I love having conversations. If you have any questions or anything you want to share, let me know. But at the end of the day, I think a ketogenic diet is a great tool. It's a great stepping stone, but the ultimate goal is metabolic flexibility, because we want to be able to, eat healthy whole food carbohydrates. We want to be able to eat healthy, whole food fats. We want to avoid processed foods. We want to avoid ultra processed foods, which is where our nation's moved to, which is insane, because those are damaging on so many levels. But that's my take on it. Meat is carcinogenic. That is false, depending on the context behind it. Again, if you guys have questions around this stuff, let me know, because I have a lot of amazing friends that are researchers and doctors that dive into the research, dive into the data, which is super important. Is not only looking at data, but understanding the data, understanding the the statistics, things like that. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of vegetables. I love vegetables. I also love education and context and looking into the ins and the outs. It's not as simple as this is good or this is bad. We're all bio-individuals, and that's really a foundation of IIN. So let me go through. Do you think meat should be avoided? I don't. I just think quality matters. And when you add an abundance of sugar to fat or protein, whether it's plant source or animal source, you're going to have a process called glycation. It's sugar binding to the molecules, and that's going to limit the integrity of that amino acid from protein or the fats from fatty acids, things like that. So the overall idea here is to balance your blood sugar. The unfortunate reality of eating fruits and certain starches in abundance is your blood sugar rises, and over time, if you damage your mitochondria, you also damage your ability to utilize that fuel source, which is glucose, and then you have a lingering elevation in glucose, which binds to these protein molecules, binds to these fat molecules, which make up our body, and then we have compromised material to make up our body. So that's my perspective. Again, read Grain Brain. That's an amazing place to start. Grain Brain is all about blood sugar regulation and your brain health and performance. Vegetarian diet, I'm not going to go into those specifics. If you want my personal opinion, reach out. And I haven't launched it yet, but I'm starting a podcast, so I've been recording, so I can answer all these questions on there from my personal perspective, but also share resources where you can look at specific data. Because again, at the end of the day, it's not just me saying something's good or bad. It's not someone else saying something's good or bad. It's you looking at the data, you looking at the research and seeing what you feel and what your perspective is and making a choice from there. I'm not going to say vegetables are bad, because they're not. I eat vegetables all day. I'm not going to say meat is bad or animal foods in general, fish, chicken, eggs, all that, because I eat those as well. I've gone times where I was vegan and vegetarian. I was juicing and I was doing this and that. And I've tried carnivore. I've tried all these things, and I've really listened to my body. And I've looked at the data and I've combined the two, and I've looked at my biomarkers. That is the most, so I can answer all these questions with this. If you're not testing your blood sugar, if you're not testing your A1C, if you're not testing your insulin, if you're not testing your CRP, which is a measure for inflammation, you have no idea what is working for you or not. The biomarkers are all the information to answer those questions, and you have to try something for long enough to get the biomarkers and go from there. I can't answer these questions. You have to answer them for yourself. But if you're not testing your blood markers, it's not even just overall cholesterol. There's NMR lipoprotein or lipoprofile that looks at total cholesterol, the HDL, the LDL, the particle size, which is super important, and all like the VDL, like all these things. Like it's super important to look at those metrics. So again, if you guys are curious about these things, DM me and I'll respond to you individually, and I'll actually be able to make an episode for my podcast to share more long form than just a couple sentences. I've heard that IIN was more about recipes and actual understanding your health. Is that true? That's false from my perspective. We learned, we had different thought leaders and educators and researchers come in and speak about their topic. There was readings, there was, live sessions with coaching. It was broken into 4 elements, if I believe correctly. At the time, it was coaching, it was education, it was marketing and business. And it taught you the fundamentals to create your own health coaching business and to be able to fulfill your desire to help people earn an income and help yourself. So they add recipes. I mean, that's an amazing benefit, but it's not just based on recipes. Let's see. Appreciate you guys. Lots of appreciation. Let's see. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for hopping on. Whoever hopped on. Will the live available in video? Yep. So the live will be downloaded and uploaded as an IGTV video, so you'll be able to review later on. So any questions you may have, you can go back and listen to and see anything I mentioned. Let's see. It's true. Learn a lot about healthy habits. Yeah, like habits. I mean, there's another great book if you want to learn about the mind. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. That is an amazing book that I believe every human being, high school and older, should read. Because high school, because the ability to start comprehending the terminology. It's written very simply and beautifully in a neuro perspective, but also a spiritual perspective, and it combines both the best of both worlds, spiritual and science, to understand your neurology, understand your subconscious and your conscious mind, and why we do the things we do, why change is so difficult, why habits are so easy to make unconsciously and we get into autopilot, all these things. It's an amazing book. One of my favorites, Grain Brain and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, 2 of my top recommended books every human being should read. Someone asked about the disease I live with. It's technically called neurofibromatosis, or NF2 for short. So it leaves me with 4 brain tumors in my skull today. They've been, I guess, lack of better words, dormant for a little over 2 years now. We check up on them every year with an MRI. First diagnosis required surgery in 2010. It removed a tumor that started here, went back to here. Second diagnosis was 2 years later, and we used gamma knife radiotherapy to zap them. They shrunk for 4 years, been stable ever since. 2017, which was 5 years after the second diagnosis, I was diagnosed with 2 more on this side, and that's when I went all in on a ketogenic approach to regulate blood sugar and insulin levels and inflammation, all these amazing things. And because of doing so, and the mind, we've been able to prevent the growth of those, and I'm really confident we'll start seeing them shrink and go away over time. So that's where I'm at. Let's see, a lot of thank yous, and I appreciate you guys hopping in. We'll start the course Health Kit Coach in July. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, have a great time. I hope you're still in here, but you're gonna really enjoy it. Yes, Grain Brain and Breaking the Habit are both on Amazon, so you can check them out. All right, so let me go back to the current ones to see what we got. Grain Brain, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Yes, those are the books. Those are my favorite books to recommend. Some more questions about those. So there's some comments, people talking in there. So I just got this book, and I'm going to start reading it soon. Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. That I heard is an amazing book. It's the biology of belief and how it works. So a lot of letting go, the path is surrender. I heard about that book. I haven't read that one yet, but that's another great one that I've heard. I got my certification years ago, yet I'm finally launching my business this summer. I need help. What resources are there for alumni? Can we access the course materials again? So that would be a question for IIN directly. I believe if you go to their website, there should be a support button where you can email, you can call in. I've called before, and it was great service. So I think if you want a quick, direct route, just give them a call or check the website for more information. But I don't know. That's not my role. I'm just a graduate, just sharing. So I appreciate all you guys that hopped on, and appreciate you guys for sharing, your appreciation and sharing these questions. Again, My Instagram account is Josh Perry BMX, JoshPerry BMX. So get any questions, just shoot me a DM. I love connecting with people. I love answering questions, and I've dedicated my life to this mission of helping people, understand their purpose and what they can do to empower themselves. So at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to speaking with you guys soon.